Here we go. Welcome, everyone, to the Champions. Now, here's your host, former Dallas Cowboys great Preston Pearson, number 26, along with co-host Cowboys superfan Nathan Ross. Here we go.
All right, well, here we go. Another episode coming up. If you weren't with us last week, you have to make sure you're with us this week. Our special guest today should be in the Hall of Fame, is in the Cowboys Ring of Honor, and one of those guys that if he weren't with the Cowboys, they would not have won a couple of Super Bowls. And let's start out with this way. Let me introduce my co-host, Nathan Ross, super Cowboys fan from way back. And according to Nathan had met our special guest before this time. You met Darren Woodson when?
You know, it was probably about, I'd say 7-8 years ago back at training camp. You know, I had a whole lot of field access thanks to John Hickman and, you know, just throwing some football to the boys. I got to meet him. It was unbelievable.
We've got a shot right there.
Oh, man.
Look at that.
I was a little leaner there. Great pick.
That hairline, my hairline looked really good back then, but I got a track meet going on now on the top of my head.
Well, always in great shape, though. Look at that. Always,
yeah.
He's ready to play right there.
But you do remember that, though, right, Darren?
I do. I remember. You know, that was the day, Nate, that actually I got put in the Ring of Honor that day. I was there working for ESPN and showed up. Myself and John Gruden showed up to cover the Cowboys at training camp.
Yes.
And it was then when Jerry walked down, grabbed me, took me up to the tower and said, "Hey, we got some news for you." And I remember wearing that shirt because I threw it away afterwards. They talked about me so bad about how tight my shirt was back then, so I had to get rid of it.
Well, it was a special day, though. I mean,
Yeah.
and it's so deserving. We're so happy for you,
Yeah,
Darren.
that was a good day. It really was.
It was a wonderful day.
Yeah.
Well, before we even get into the credentials of this gentleman right here, we're going to start a new concept on the Champions this time. We've had so many people putting or getting on social media and asking questions about our guests that I couldn't answer or could not answer at the time anyway. So we're going to start a new segment right now. And the segment's going to be called Ask a Pro. So Nathan, take over. Introduce us to our special guest who has this special question to Darren Woodson. This is the first of Ask a Pro.
Yes, and this is a very special one, Darren, too, because this is my cousin, who's more like my brother. I mean, he has been a Dallas Cowboy fan for 44 years. I've been for about 46 years, so he loves the Dallas Cowboys, and you're his favorite player. So when he found out I was going to be doing an interview with you, he was just so excited.
That's good.
But, you know, and I wanted him to write a question down, and this one's about the defense for you. His question is, what is Coach Mike Zimmer going to bring differently to the defense than Dan Quinn to help get us that 6th Lombardi trophy? And this is from Mark Pitts from Arlington, Texas. Darren.
Well, I spent 12 years of my career with Mike Zimmer as a defensive coordinator, and let me tell you this: the tough mentality, the in-your-face mentality, the get out and grind it out, work hard and practice mentality, is what he's going to bring to the table. So you're not going to go into a game not knowing what your role is on that football team. And not understand what is expected of you. That's what Mike Zimmer will. If it's gap control, you control your gap. Don't worry about everything. Just do your job. And I can't tell you how many times I heard that. So the discipline is going to be there, one. Number two, he's going to simplify things. The simplicity of his defense is pretty easy. You kind of know what you are. He identifies who he is, and this is how they're going to play a certain style of defense. It's not going to be all overly complicated where guys have to guess and think about where they should be and all. He will simplify that defense. And then I think the one thing you're going to see is the defensive line, the linebacking core will get tougher. It'll be a tougher mentality. It will be an attitude that's going to be a little different. Now, you're going to have some arguments on the sideline. Trust me. This is not going to be – you're not going to just onboard Mike Zimmer into this organization and not have some bumps, because his ego is going to be in the way. His pride's going to be in the way, and he's going to ruffle some feathers, and that's just the way he does things.
He's going to let you know about it.
And either they buy in or they don't.
Yeah.
One of the two. So we'll see.
All right.
Darren, real fast on that too. Him being on the sideline is I really think is going to help too. Coaching from like Dan Quinn from up high. I think Mike Zimmer, with what you were saying and that intensity, being there to talk to players as they come off the field, being able to coach them up on the sideline. I think that's going to help too. Yeah,
I think so as well. But here's the thing. I think we're going to have to deal with some of the bumps early on, personality-wise, because this team has been different. Dan Quinn's a different coach. Dan Quinn is more of a player coach.
Yes.
Wants to get to know his guys.
He's the one that's going to put his arm around you.
He's going to coddle you. Yes.
It's okay.
Well, there ain't no coddling anymore.
Zimmer is not going to
He's
do
not
that.
a coddler. It's an in-your-face approach where if you're not doing your job, he will be animated on the sideline. Trust me, I've had millions of arguments with Mike Zimmer on the sideline.
Really?
And you forget about him. It's like, it is what it is. We argue in practice. You get over it. Right. And then, the games, you have these arguments and these fallouts, but you get over them, because I know his intent, his best intent is to win football games, and that's exactly what I wanted.
That's why he was hired.
Yeah.
All right. Let's talk about the credentials of this gentleman right here. And we're going to leave out the most important three things until the end. But he was a second-round pick, 37th overall in 1992. Mm-hmm. A three-time first-team All-Pro, 94, 96 through 96. Five-time Pro Bowler, 94 through 98. All-Rookie team. I didn't know that part. Bart Starr Award winner. I bet you're extremely proud of that one.
Yeah.
Cowboys Ring of Honor. Team leader in tackles. Did y'all hear me?
Wow,
Still,
I heard it.
Team leader in tackles, 1,350 tackles.
Darren.
And get this one, 19 in one game. 19 tackles in one game, y'all.
I'm feeling every part of that, too.
Wow. Impressive. On fire that game, jeez.
And this all started when he was a walk-on at Arizona State University.
Yes, sir.
Wow. And yet, he is one of these guys that is not enshrined in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Why not? What are you looking for? All right. He is perhaps the best safety in Cowboys history, not yet in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Did y'all hear what I just said?
Yeah, I heard it.
The
right.
Cowboys have a great history of defensive people, defensive safeties, cornerbacks.
Yes.
What did I just say? Perhaps the best safety in Cowboys history.
True. Or NFL history.
That's saying a lot there, folks.
Yeah.
Okay, let's start at the beginning a little bit here. Let's start at Darren's beginnings back in Maryville, Arizona. Okay. There you got a shot of him. Who is that, Darren?
Double deuce right there.
Man.
What year is this?
Talk to us. We went back there. God, I can't even tell you. I had to be in 4th, 5th grade here. I was a running back. That's where I made my hay early on when I was playing.
He's got those Steelers colors on.
Yeah, and I was a big Steelers fan.
Yeah. Oh,
I was a Steelers fan growing up. Yeah.
That hurts deep.
We'll forgive you for now.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So he was backed up by family.
Yeah.
And that's you on the left there, isn't it?
Yeah, that's me with number 10. I changed the number to number 10. My brother Randy, and that's my mother up there. Single mom raised 4 kids.
Cool.
Yeah.
And mom is huge in your life.
Yeah.
Huge and obviously very special in getting you involved in sports and especially in football.
Yeah.
And we'll talk a little bit more about that as well. I believe we have one more shot of Darren. He's a little bit older here.
Yeah.
What is this, high school?
Yeah, no, man. It's probably 7th, 8th grade, maybe 8th grade. Yeah, somewhere in there.
Young.
Man, you sent you these pictures, man. They can't be sending these type of pictures out without my knowing about them.
Oh my.
Well, here's where he ran into a few problems.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't know it from knowing this man today, that he had some academic problems in getting to the Arizona State University.
Yeah, and this was, we'll talk about this one.
Yeah.
We'll have a good
Go
conversation.
ahead. We'll talk about it right now.
Well,
what was the problem? What was going on in your life at this time?
A focus. Look, I was the youngest of four. My older brothers and sisters had moved on. My mom was a single mom, worked 2 jobs, no excuses. I just didn't work hard enough. I was in school, didn't put the time in, knew what I was doing, but wasn't hyper-focused. And everyone says, well, you walked on at Arizona State. I didn't walk on. I was what they call a Prop 48. I had to sit out. I was a scholarship guy. I had to sit out my first year and couldn't play.
Because of the grades.
Because of the grades. But everyone kept on saying, well, he's a walker. No. I was a scholarship guy. But I had to get focused on my grades. And it was, and I can sit here and tell you guys today, as it pertains to the person that I am, it was the experience in my life that really solidified who I was and who I became. Because it was my first time having real adversity and being embarrassed to the point where people thought that, well, you're a football player, you're not smart enough to get your grades. And I knew I was smart enough to get the grades.
That's right.
But the perception was that I wasn't. And I went in my first year at Arizona State, and I worked my butt off my first year, got my grades right, and I was able to play. And I graduated, guys, in 3.5 years because it really put the onus on there's something more than just football.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's what a lot day. Don't get
that.
day.
Yeah.
And you majored in criminology?
Criminal justice at a business minor.
Justice.
Yeah. That was my
amazing story.
Were you going to, let's say football wasn't going to pan out or anything like that? Did you do criminal justice? Were you thinking about being law enforcement or something in that industry?
No, I just full transparency. When I first came in, I thought about being in criminal justice just to be maybe a sheriff or a county sheriff. Or my mom worked with the clerk's office in Maricopa County, right? So I saw a lot of what was going on there. Saw some of the judges, met a lot of those people, but at the same time, about my sophomore year, with the experience of being off the field and not having, look, I was a project kid. I lived in the projects early on, moved to West Phoenix in the Maryville area, single mom, 4 kids. I never owned a house. We were in apartment complexes and renting houses and all.
They call Maryville Scaryville.
Scaryville, yeah. It's
because of all of the problems that was going on.
So I didn't have mentors in my life. My mentor was my mother. So when I got into college, it was the first time I had the experience of what's life outside of sports. And I started to meet people that did other things. Own construction companies, own a plumbing company. A lot of my friends that I was meeting now came from backgrounds of ownership, owning their own business. And that's what really inspired me to say. The seed
was planted.
Yes, the seeds were planted to say, hey, there's something more. If I don't make it in sports, there's something else that I can do. As long as I put my foot down and work my butt off, I can make it happen.
So you get to Arizona State University with some help, and you got some help from men.
Yes.
A couple of big-time men.
Yeah.
One of them was named Don Bochy. Bochy.
Don Bochy, yeah.
And the other was a coach already at ASU who became a coach in the National Football League. He was your linebackers coach at the time. And those 2 gentlemen were instrumental in you getting through school, getting your grades together to become the second-round choice for the Dallas Cowboys. Can we show a couple of those guys that I looked up that assisted Darren in getting through ASU? I know one of them.
That's my buddy. That's my buddy Keith.
This is
that's another
one
story.
of Darren's big buddies here. Yeah, we're going to talk about that too because I think that's extremely important for the man that you are today because of what happened with one of your best friends Keith Tucker,
Yeah,
correct?
Correct.
From back in the day. And we'll talk about that a little bit later on, but keep that name in mind. I want to show the gentleman, Lovie Smith especially, and I want to show Lovie because Lovie
That's
went on
amazing.
to become a
It's a Lovie.
coach at my alma mater, University of
Oh,
Illinois.
no.
Oh, that's right. I just got back from Champaign just a couple days ago. Yeah, I was just there a couple of days
See,
ago.
we
yeah.
got a lot in common
Yeah,
already.
yeah.
Other
Great,
than
two
the
great
Dallas
players,
Cowboys.
that's for sure. And champions, Super Bowl champions. You sure do have a lot in common.
There's a shot at Lovie at University of Illinois, but he was instrumental for you in applying yourself academically to be able to contribute towards a very successful career.
And there's Don Bakke right there, and Don Bakke was the recruiting coordinator at Arizona State. And let me tell you, when I was in high school, Bakke would show up. This man right here would show up every day and make sure that I was in class. Because I was at that point, I was at a pivotal point in my last year, my senior year, where I wasn't focused. And it wasn't until Bakke showed up on a day-to-day, because I was getting recruited by a lot of the Pac-12 schools and a lot of schools around the country. But Arizona State put the time in to say, okay, you know you're going to be a Prop 48. Let's set up a game plan on how to get there. And Bakke would show up at Maryville High my last, three months, and we set a game plan on what life was going to look like the following year. So he was instrumental and still instrumental in my life. And then Lovie Smith, when I first got to Arizona State, one thing about Lovie Smith is, I learned about time. I understood what time really meant. Because if you were late for a meeting, he made you run stadiums at Arizona State at 4:30
Takes care of that right away, right?
So be late. Be late for class, you're running. You're late for a meeting, you're running. And it just gave me an understanding of, and it wasn't just, we had 10 guys in our linebacker room. If one guy was late, we all ran.
Yeah.
So there's an
You're a
accountability.
team.
There's an accountability factor there
Yes,
as well.
sir.
And he just taught me so much more. And I'll say this because you said it earlier. Those two men were instrumental in my life because I didn't have the father figure in my life growing up. I knew my father. Still have a good relationship with my father, but he wasn't
Arthur,
there.
right?
Arthur Woodson. He wasn't there every single day, and my mother basically raised us. And it wasn't until, I ran into Bakke, ran into, Coach Lovie Smith, that I really had the discipline of knowing how a man should act and how he should.
Preston.
And a father, yes.
But
Go
they
ahead.
said, I heard Boki, you said?
Bakke.
How do you say his name? Bakke?
yeah.
I read where he said that the position coaches of Arizona State were almost going to fight to see after his freshman practice because he didn't know which way he was going to go.
Yeah.
I mean, he was fast enough to be a cornerback. He hit hard enough to be a linebacker. So I read that they all were in there fighting for him to be a part of their unit. So unbelievable. How did you choose, Darren, to be linebacker? How did you come to that?
Well, it was more
decision?
so. I went there to Arizona State. I got recruited as a running back as well. So it was either running back or playing on the defensive side of the ball, whether it be safety or linebacker. And it was the first couple of days I was working with both groups, and Lovie Smith came over and said, "No, you're with me," and that was it.
Yeah.
Like he made the decision. Grabbed me over, and I went on, and I loved it. Look, I was always a defensive-minded guy. But even when I was a kid, I loved to hit. I loved to be the hitter, not getting hit.
Yeah.
Yes,
So
yes.
And Lovie recognized
he
that right
recognized
away.
that, and I was aggressive. I always played with an aggressive style as well, so that it fit me just right.
Okay.
Yes, you did.
Tell us a little bit about your measurables in college. And while you're doing that, Trey, if you pull up that shot that I found somewhere.
Jeez.
That's coming in my first year. That's the NFL Combine.
Okay.
That was the NFL Combine.
This is just before you got
Oh,
drafted.
he's ready for
yeah,
battle
that
right
was right
there.
before,
Yes,
just
sir.
right
That's
before I
ready
got
for battle.
drafted.
Okay,
Yeah.
what are you, 6'2", 220?
I'm 227 right here, 226, 227. And I did linebacking drills when I was at the Combine. Came back, and on my pro day, I did both linebacker drills and defensive back drills. And that's when Dave Campbell actually worked me out on the defensive back drills, along with 20 other coaches. And that's when I knew I was going to be. Because I had so many coaches say, "Hey, you're going to be a safety when you get into the NFL."
Oh, really?
And that's but look, the work ethic started early on. Started with my freshman sophomore year with Lovie Smith. I covered I covered wide receivers. I covered the slot guy. I covered the tight ends. I covered running backs. So the coverage aspect of it was a natural for me. And I just don't think that most teams, nor did the Cowboys, know that I had those type of abilities.
So at 225, 6'2", you get drafted in the 37th pick of the 1992 draft. Now, you were behind a couple other guys that was drafted by the Cowboys that year.
Yeah.
You remember who they were?
Yeah, Kevin Smith,
Robert
DB,
Jones, and Robert Jones, another linebacker.
And Jimmy Smith. Jimmy Smith.
Yeah,
Jimmy went 34th, I think, or 35th pick.
Jackson State.
Yeah. So we had a lot of picks from the Herschel Walker trade.
Yes, we did.
That were still
5
there.
picks from that.
And I was one of those guys.
We got Emmett and Darren Woodson from that trade. Can you believe that? What a trade.
Clayton Holmes was a part of that draft.
Yes,
and
he was.
A couple other guys beyond or below Clayton Holmes, who was the 38th pick.
Yeah.
We don't even remember those names. 82nd, 109th, and 120th. And at 121 was Rod Milstead.
Rod Milstead. Wow,
And I think he stuck around. Yeah, he stuck around for a minute or two with the Cowboys.
Yeah, Greg Briggs was on there too, I think, out of
Greg
Southern.
Briggs, he was the 120th pick.
Yeah, he stayed around for a few years, for a couple of years.
Tom Myslinski and James Brown.
Wow, man, those are names.
Virginia Tech.
Yeah, those are some
They
names.
were all from your class. All right, okay, so Arizona State University, you get picked by the Cowboys. What was going through your mind at the time when you were picked by the Cowboys, yet you were a Steelers fan?
Oh,
loved them. What went through your mind?
There was a lot. So on draft day, so you're bringing up some memories. So on draft day, I flew to Dallas. And it's crazy at that time. I didn't know the background of the Jerry Jones when he bought the team, and there was some dissension in the fact of the relationship between him and Tom Landry and all. Well, Coach Landry was one of the first persons I met. My first day at Valley Ranch, I flew in, and evidently they're trying to renew that relationship, and Coach Landry was there, and I remember walking in, and again, I was a Steelers fan growing up. I didn't have a football team in Phoenix. The Cardinals didn't show up.
Who was your favorite player?
Well,
with the Steelers at that time as a kid?
Oh man, who do you want to know? I mean, Lynn Swann, Stallworth.
Yes.
I mean, I was a big, even on the other side, Jack Ham, Lambert,
Joe Green, all of those guys.
I mean, and it was because my sister was a Steelers fan. Yeah, okay. And she was 7 years older than everyone else, so she used to beat us up and make sure that we were all following the Steelers, right? So that's how it started. I'm just telling the truth, right? Here we go.
That's what we want.
So I get there, I'm in Dallas, and I still have this. Okay, Cowboys just drafted me. Like I had no idea.
Yeah.
There were 20 other teams that I thought would draft me instead of the Cowboys, right? So here I am.
Right.
It's still a little surreal about being in the building and all. And the first person I meet is the person I couldn't stand the most, and that was Coach Landry, because Coach Landry this was the evil empire, right? And he was the figure of that, and I couldn't stand the Cowboys because all my friends, even the one you just saw a minute ago, Keith, his favorite team was the Cowboys. Everybody. I mean, we were the minority as far as it came to being a Steelers fan, right? So anyway, I get here. I see Coach Landry. He meets and greets all the draft picks. We're all standing there, and I thought, man, this is unbelievable. Like, it's Coach Landry. He had his hat on the whole nine. Like, man, this is Coach Landry.
Never without that hat.
I meet him, and I meet the Joneses and Coach Johnson, and everything's going about itself. But let me tell you how it flips from being a big time Steelers fan and then becoming a Cowboys fan. Jerry Jones took out this piece of paper and had a check on it. It had a number. And on the bottom of his name, there was a star on it, and then it had his name on it, and then it had a signing bonus number on it. and I instantly
you.
became a Dallas
He got
Cowboy.
you.
Dude, I was like, hey, I don't even know. Got him.
Got
Yeah,
him.
exactly.
Got him.
So I
He
called
got
my
you.
family up. I told my sister, your allegiances have just changed.
He got you.
And then
Only
you played
Jerry.
against him in the Super Bowl in
Yeah.
Super Bowl 30. I
Yeah.
mean, wow, that we'll talk. But did you feel weird in that
No.
game because you
No.
were such a huge
No,
fan of them?
I had
as a kid?
amnesia. I don't remember anything about the Steelers. When he gave me that check and he
It
pushed it
was
across the
over
desk,
right
it was
there.
over with. I was like, okay, well,
Wonderful,
yeah,
Darren.
I am a Cowboy fan.
Yeah, that was a wonderful
Wonderful.
moment for you.
Good
Okay,
for us.
when you're accepting this and you realizing this, I'm sure your mind had to go back to Mom
Yeah.
and Keith and all of the people that were in your
Yeah.
world that you're saying, do they know I'm here at Dallas Cowboys and I'm looking at a big fat check here? Talk to us a little bit about the allegiance that you showed to your very best friend, Keith
Yeah.
Tucker, who had some problems coming up, but yet he stayed with you
Yeah.
through the Steelers, into the Cowboys, through all of the troubles that he had, and you stayed with him through all the troubles
Yeah.
he had.
Yeah, and
That's a
that's a long story. So Keith and I grew up. We're 5 months separate from each other. Grew up in the same pods in the inner city, and then moved. Both of us moved into Maryvale later on. Best friends. I mean, not a day went by that we weren't together. But we got into high school, and a lot of gangs in our area, a lot of drugs and all. And Keith, he'll tell you in a heartbeat. He went the easy way. He went the route of he wanted the money now. I was too scared, honestly. I saw the drug game as well. I saw the gangs, and I saw, and a lot of them were my friends. But, the fear of my mom and understanding that if
That'll
I
do it
did
every
something
time.
stupid, my mom, my sister, and my brothers would kick my butt. So,
Yes.
there was a fear factor there that I wanted to stay straight. And Keith, went a different way. He was joined. He was the Crip. He was, selling, drugs and doing things, and still a friend of mine, and still my best friend. And we had some deep conversations about it. But I went one way and stayed true to what I wanted. Mm-hmm. And he ended up, after his senior year graduating in high school, a couple of months later, he ends up getting picked up and convicted of murder for a shooting, drive-by shooting. So actually someone was driving by him and he shot back, and there you go. So
He spent how many years?
26 years.
My.
He did 26 years in prison, and to this day I can remember being in the courthouse when they came down with the verdict, and it was devastating in the fact of, this is my best friend. This is a guy that,
Yes.
we were 2 years old when I we were younger than that, but babies rolling around together. But, for your brother to go down that way, man, and that verdict come down, you just feel like life is over with.
Yes.
And so he did 26 years, and there were some times where he was in isolation, he couldn't make calls or whatnot. But for 26 years, every Tuesday, that phone rang, and it was a collect call for William Keith Tucker, and I can say his number, but I won't. But they give you his number and all, and I'd answer that phone, man, and we talk. But this is a guy who was
Quite
the
emotional,
biggest
I'm sure.
Cowboy fan ever. Ever. To this day, he's yelling about these Cowboys. But
Isn't that amazing?
so every Tuesday we would talk,
it
have
is.
conversations. I would go visit him. I take my kids to go see him because I want him. And he told me he wanted my kids to come see him because he wanted to show them what this life was about, right? So my kids in the off season, we'd go out to Florence, where he was right outside of Phoenix, and visit him, and then when his time came up. 26 years later, they let him out, and he's changed his life. He lives in Atlanta. He's working 2 jobs, and we remain
Darren.
friends, man. We still, every other day, we're
Good for
still
you
on the
guys.
phone, man.
Good,
And
good
Darren,
for
real
both
quick
of you.
real one fast thing. When he was younger, I heard one of your stories saying that he wouldn't let you come around any bad problems.
Yeah.
He would make sure that you were separated from any problems because he was protecting you. And it sounds like what an amazing friend.
Yeah. We did. We had well, look, there were some arguments to be said about that. He didn't want me to go to the party, and I was like, I'm going to the party.
Right.
And then there was,
Make
but
you
in
go
the end,
home.
I knew he was right. I was wrong. I need to go somewhere else. So, I try to avoid those things. Yeah.
That's the kind of friend you want to have, despite
Absolutely,
whatever
Preston.
problems he may or may not have had. That's the
right.
kind of friend that you really want to have. Yeah. All right, you get drafted. You come in here, you got competition from James Washington and Thomas Everett.
Thomas Everett.
Kenny Gant. Yeah.
Kenny Gant.
A
lot of competition in camp, but I think the coaches that were here knew they had to put you in the game soon.
Yeah.
With that size and speed. What'd you run the 40?
I ran at my pro day. I ran a 4.36.
A 4.36.
Yeah. So they knew I could run. I mean, that's the one thing. That's probably what got me drafted. Was how I ran at the combine, and then how I ran
That is so
on
fast,
pro day.
Darren.
But I think here's the thing. When I first came to the Cowboys, the atmosphere was very competitive. Extremely competitive. This team had gone 11-5 and lost to the Detroit Lions in the second round, and then and they were a young football team, extremely young team, and the expectations were to go further the next year, right? And so I walk into a locker room where there's some alpha dogs, like they're young, they're hungry, they knew what they wanted, and here I go, and Jimmy had this atmosphere of competition. Everyone was competing for a job, and he told you. He told the entire team where they were.
Wow.
Here, everyone's competing for a job every single day. If you can't compete and if you're not going to fight for your job, then you're out the door. So that was the setting. And it was either you were going to make it or you won't. And there's some guys you just listed on my draft, the guys that were on that draft. A lot of those guys didn't make it.
Yes.
Third, fourth round guys did not make it that year. Because they weren't willing to go that extra mile. So when I came in, man, it was fight or flight, dude. It was one of the two, and I wanted to eat. And I can tell you right now, I wanted to play. I didn't want to sit on the sideline. I didn't want to just make the team. Like I felt like you know how you walk up, and Preston, you've been there. You walk up, and it's your first day, and you're looking around, and you're sizing people up. They're sizing you up at the same time. Yep. And I'm at practice going, "Oh, I'm better than you." I'm serious. I'm like,
absolutely.
I can turn my hips. I can do these things. These guys can't do. Blah blah blah. So it was very, and I thank those guys, man. I thank James Washington, Ray Horton, Robert Williams. Thomas Everett came in a little later. Kenny Gant, but man, they made practice so competitive. They sharpened me up to be the person that I am. And my first year, I played all nickel. And then the second year I came in, I was as a starter, and I'm still a little upset the fact that I didn't start my first year. But anyway, what it is.
you had the ultimate alpha dog in Jimmy Johnson leading the way.
Wow,
so you guys either, like you said, you either get in line and get the job done, or you're out of here.
That's right.
I remember seeing Jimmy Johnson on the sidelines at practice whenever I had a chance to go out there. I remember seeing him doing that a lot.
Yeah, getting guys out.
Getting guys out of there.
Yeah.
You're out. You're out.
Yeah, and don't look. I tell you what, the understanding that Jimmy Johnson. This is kind of how I built my businesses, today, and the mindset that I have within my business is like. Iron sharpens iron, so it's always got to be a competitive nature in whatever you're doing, right? Because it lifts the boats, right? It finds a way to lift everyone out. But at the same time, there are certain things that you want from your players. One is competitive, but showing up every day. Like just show up. If you just show up every single day, whether it be good or bad, if you show up every day consistently, the coaches and those that are your peers will recognize the consistency of who you are. They absolutely will. And that was part of the reason why I looked at every day. Like he would tell us, you can't make the club in the tub. That's not happening. If you're hurt all the time, I'm going to get rid of you, right? You can't make the club in the tub. You have to be out there practicing and wanting to compete every
seen.
single day. And
Be
that
seen.
that cut out a lot of all the fat for me. Like it's okay, I show up every day, I compete. I'm okay with that. I can do it.
You had a little work at that back at ASU.
Yes.
Under those coaches.
Yes.
Show up, be here, get your academics done.
Right.
Come out here and play hard every day.
Yeah.
So that was a carryover from
Yeah.
Arizona State University under the direction of those coaches
Yes.
and your mom.
Yeah, and my mother.
family.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It starts way back.
Way back. Yeah. It's a
Everything
foundation. It's
starts-
called a foundation, right?
That's exactly where it is. Okay, we get to the Cowboys. You become a starter in two areas that you excel in. One is interceptions, and we're going to show a few of your interceptions. Trey, if we can pull that up. And this one is, I believe, is against the Eagles. And
That was
there
the
you are
Oilers,
doing
yeah.
your thing.
That was the Oilers. Nice.
I almost fumbled that ball there. Yeah, I know. running
I love
back
those
like
old
you,
Oilers.
This one is against the Cardinals. I remember this one myself.
Yeah.
Nice.
Showing
Good
that
anticipation right there, Darren.
athleticism right there. Here's another one, I believe. It's against the Cardinals.
Cardinals too.
Yeah,
He
he
had-
just threw
had
that's
some
Charles
pressure
Haley
help.
just
Yeah.
Charles
Yeah.
Haley just wiped him out.
yeah.
Great
yeah.
interception.
You know, it's crazy. I'm watching these plays, and I don't remember half of these. I'm serious.
Look
you
at
know,
those,
you
Randall.
forget. Yeah.
Well, watch
Oh,
this one.
nice.
You're going to have a convoy, I believe, with guys, players around you.
Look at
I
Bill
believe
Bates.
that was Bill Bates there.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
And this defensive line helped a lot in certain
Oh,
plays.
he took this to
Yeah,
the
they
hizzy.
did.
This
Yeah,
is
they
the
Here
one.
he goes.
Watch Chad Hennings out here, the big
Oh, yeah.
defensive tackle. He's
You
going
know what?
stride by
He-
stride.
Hey, you
with
know what? Don't start this. Don't give Chad Hennings any credit. To this day, he talks about he ran with me down the field. You know, I don't want to hear.
Chad loves it.
Yeah. But these are all, you know, a lot of these
Scans.
plays are all in one-on-one situations where it's in man-to-man situations.
Man on man. Yeah.
Look, he broke that tackle to make the tag.
Showing a little bit of that running back capabilities
Yes, sir.
right there.
I saw that.
This is the Raiders.
Oh, he just threw that to me.
1995.
This is
it,
the
they got it.
one coming up. This is the one I really, really love. And again, it shows his athleticism. One-handed,
You know,
left-handed.
Hey, they need to cut this
grab.
one off, though, because I fumbled the ball right there trying to throw it to Dion. You know?
They tried to throw a middle screen on him right there.
That
And
was
that's tough
nice.
to cover by any safety.
Yes, sir. Boomer
This
Esiason
one,
right here.
I think he made a mistake here by trying to lateral this
I did.
thing.
Well, I tried to do it. That's what I did against the Buffalo Bills. And guess what happened to me?
Hey,
You know?
did Dion tell you after that, hey, dude, take the hit yourself, or was he glad you flipped it to him?
No, look, let me tell you what. You talk about selfish. Like, this is my boy. I love Dion. He's my guy, right? Love him to death. But when I got an interception, if he was close, all I could hear was, "Would he pitch it? Would he pitch it? Would he pitch it?" Like, he wanted to be the guy that ran it back for a touchdown. And half the time, I was like, okay, I need to get the ball to him, find a way. But at the same time, like, he was, he always felt like every interception should go back to the house, which
Yeah.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
He was that special of a player. So
That-
we always wanted to get the ball to him somehow, some way. But, oh, yeah, he's selfish, dude.
Well, the
He wanted
interceptions
it.
were all great and
Yes.
outstanding, showing his athleticism. But I think he made the Ring of Honor and should be in the Hall of Fame because
Absolutely, no
of
question.
his ability to make tackles and make tackles that sounded like it was 3 or 4 guys making the tackle. So let's throw the array of shots we have here of Darren making some tackles. And this one,
He was-
that's the one that put Darryl.
That's a
Jackson.
legal hit. That's legal hit.
It
There's
was
the shoulder.
legal back then, but not
Well,
today.
No, well, look, it was 75,000.
I
still-
It was. I got fined 75,000
Yes,
on this
you
play.
did.
So I was not a happy camper. Trust me.
I
And
mean,
you know,
what
and
do
here's
they
the
want
thing.
you to do? What do they want you to do here?
I have no idea because I came
at that.
across of him on the side of his shoulder. But here's the problem.
Yes.
Only reason I was playing deep safety in this game was because I had a high ankle sprain. So most of the time I'm covering the slot
Yeah,
receiver.
you'd be right up there on
Right,
him.
I'd be up
Right.
close to the slot receiver, but I couldn't run that day, so they put me back there. But
Darren.
Hey, look, this was a big hit. Cost me a lot of money on the backside of things.
And it gave him 15 yards in a crucial game, part of the game.
Yep,
which
absolutely.
We were tied at the time too. So ridiculous call. I don't like it. You put your hat on the ball. That's what it looked like. With
Two
the
penalties right there against the defense.
Yeah.
Well, one was
This is the
offsides,
one
can't
that
be
was.
That was a hard one. That was a hard one to swallow.
Yeah, that was.
Why do we have to show
I don't
this one
like the
anyway?
call.
Hey, guys, let's fast forward this.
Well, this guy had to go to the hospital, by the way, and his coach said later that he had some brain issues, and it turned out to be okay, but
Yeah.
that
I'm sorry.
represents.
I'm glad he's okay though. I don't want him hurt.
Yeah,
I'm not
that's how
saying
we all
that.
feel.
I hope
Like,
he's
hey, look,
so wonderful, but dude, that was
Yeah,
a
and that's the
clean
thing.
hit.
Look, I felt like the hit was clean and all, and I had no intentions. There was no malice behind those type hits. Look, you always, and here's the thing about the league. You always want the guy to get up. Like, period, man. You never want to see, because it could easily be just the opposite way around, right?
That's right.
It could be
Yes,
you
sir.
taking
Yes, sir.
the hits like that. So you never want that to come full circle around. But, we play this as a brotherhood. We play the game because we love it, but it's a violent game. And we all have to understand that.
Pro football is definitely a violent game. All parents should
was.
know that when you're talking about any kind of sport like this at any age level, and certainly once you get to the pro level, it's a very violent game. Okay, Darrell Jackson was okay after several days in the hospital. We want to talk a little bit more here about your time and the moment that you should have been awarded more or paid more attention to. And same thing is happening right now with regard to your going into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I still don't know why you aren't there or haven't been given more consideration. But at the same time that you established the record, Cowboys record for tackles, 1,350 tackles. Wow. That was the same day that Emmitt Smith
broke the record. All-time
broke Walter Payton's rushing record. And all the accolades went to Emmitt Smith. Nobody said much to Darren Woodson about breaking the tackling records.
Yeah.
Why do you think that was?
Look, we're talking. Look, I know exactly what it was. Look, we're talking about a team record, right? Which I get. Like, and leading up to that week, one person may have asked me about being the all-time leading tackler, right? I'm breaking that record.
Press people.
Shame on them.
Right. You probably was you, Preston. I guarantee it probably was you, right?
Shame on them.
But the topic had been for weeks. And the entire year had been, when is Emmitt going to break the record for all team? I mean, that had been the topic of conversation for everyone. So I get it. Like, I have no problems, saying that, what I did was one thing, and it's a team record, but what Emmitt did was incredible. Yeah. And it was something that was going to be a milestone. And I firmly believe that's a record that will never, ever get broken. Emmitt's record is being the all-time leading tackler because running backs aren't used the same way anymore.
Yeah, that's
so
true.
that milestone is going to stay for forever and much deserved. And here's my other issue that I had with that game: we lost that game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was so frustrated after that game that I could not even think. I mean, look, I'll say it to you guys. I'll put it out there. And I know moms and dads are probably listening. But I am the worst loser ever. Like, I'm serious. It don't matter if we're playing dominoes, if we're playing checkers, if we're playing cards. If we're going to play, I want to win. I'm
with you, Darren.
And that's what the game meant to me. And Preston, you know how this feels. All week long, what people don't see is the behind the scenes, right? They see the Sunday game, but they don't see Monday when you can barely walk and you're hurt. And you got to get in the cold plunge, and you got to go get a massage and see the chiropractor.
You can't even sleep.
You can't sleep
so much.
You got turf burns. Your sheets are all bloody from the turf burns. You got all your arms and whatnot. And then Wednesday comes, you're back at practice. You're watching film all day. You show up at 6:30. You don't get home until 7. And it goes to Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, the same thing. And here comes Saturday, and then you're in a game Sunday. Like, what they don't see is the backside of it. So the commitment to me was, if I'm going to put all that time in, all that work in, Well, the end result is I want to win. That's wasted time. To me, it's wasted time to put all that work in and then lose a game and then be okay with losing. It doesn't work that way.
You didn't come out to talk to the people, right? Somebody asked you to come out and because Emmett was being given something.
Yeah, I left.
Did you go out there?
No, I left.
Or you just left?
I was gone.
That's right.
Dude, I showered, got in the car, and took off. And I'm sorry. Like, I love Emmett. Emmett's a dear friend of mine, but I wasn't trying to celebrate that day. I was kind of cranky, right?
Absolutely. That's why you're one of the greatest safeties of all time, too.
They should have given you more recognition on the field as after, and they did neither one of those. So I would have done probably the same thing. So you're in good stead. Okay, latter stages of Darren's career, you talked about the injuries and things like that. What injury most hampered you? I believe I saw several instances where you had your elbow or your forearm,
shoulders.
I've had any problems with your knees? Or
no
back?
Knees, low back. So that was the one, the worst. So I had 10, I had 11 surgeries altogether, and the low back surgery was the one that ended my career. So I had L4, L5, discectomy, nerve damage. And that was the one going into my 13th year was the one that really set me back. So I didn't play my 13th. Everyone says I played 12 years. I played 12 seasons, but the 13th year I actually was on the team, but had the back surgery leading up to that 13th year, and it ended my career. It was, I had all these surgeries in the past that I was able to overcome, rehab, and then get back on the field. And it's the same thing. Like, the off season is always filled with if you're going to have a surgery or if you're not, right? So the season ends, 60% of the teams having some type of getting their finger fixed, getting an elbow fixed, or getting your knee scoped or something. Like something's happening. Yes. And most of those years that I had some type of surgery, a shoulder or a rotator cuff, something. It's usually you get it fixed, you rehab, you're ready for the next season, or you're ready for to continue to play. This one didn't work that way. Yeah. This was, I couldn't walk.
So you're saying to yourself, it might be time.
No, I didn't. Honestly, I didn't. So here's how it worked. I remember going to get an MRI and for my back, and they had to take me to the hospital because I was we were doing these conditioning tests leading up to training camp. My back went out, and it was like a process. It was like 2 months of dealing with my back, and then finally it blew out. Yes. I finally get to the hospital. They take me to the hospital, and I'm looking at this. Video or this picture of my back, and one of the ladies who's a nurse, she's standing there, and she says, "Hey, look, baby, have you seen your back?" And I said, "Yeah." Same nurse at Carroll Clinic that I've worked with for years, right? Fingers, hands, whatever. Same lady who takes you through. She said, "Have you seen your back?" And I said, "No, I haven't seen it." She says, "Hey, it looks like you've been in about 100 car accidents." And I was like, "Huh, okay." And that was the first, right? That was the first strike. So I didn't think about it. I get home. Everyone goes to training. This is a week later. Everyone goes to training camp. I'm still stuck at home because of the surgery, and I can't do anything. And I finally I beg Bill Parcells to fly me out there because I can't stand to be home while everybody's at training camp. They fly me to Oxnard. I'm sitting there and I'm doing my rehab there, and I rehabbed it for 2 to 3 months. In about the 3rd month, I'm starting to get better. I'm starting to feel a little bit stronger. The nerve still isn't all the way fully generated yet, regenerated yet. But I'm almost there, and I have this major setback. And it was then where I was outside. Actually, I was outside with my son. My oldest son, DJ. And I'm playing ball with him. He throws the ball over my head, and I reached up to get it, and I fell down. And it was then, Preston, where I said, "I'm done." Yeah. I'm done because I want to have the quality of life.
That was a signal right there. And a lot of guys don't do that and make a mistake and pay for it later on in life when they're with family. Yeah. And most guys retire before, 35? So the remaining part of your life is still out there. And if you can't maneuver or hold your child in your arms, what are you doing? I mean, think about it, guys. That's all I'm saying. Okay, so After all of that, all of the 11 surgeries.
Sorry, guys.
I didn't have 11, but I had a bunch of them.
I ain't proud of them either.
after that, you didn't retire. Right. Let's throw up quickly the Dallas Cowboys retirement ceremony on the field quickly, if we could, Trey.
Oh, the Ring of Honor, yeah.
Oh, what a moment.
They're kind of just showing some of your highlights as you get inducted into the Cowboys Ring of Honor, which, in my opinion, also came late. Should have been done prior to that. What are all of these people waiting for when they look at your statistics, your time in the game?
Sorry, guys.
As opposed to other people that they put into either the Ring of Honor or the National Football League Hall of Fame? What are they looking for?
I have no idea, because I don't look here. I look at my career, and I don't know if you base it on stats. I think you base it on being a transcending player, right? So the transcending part of my game was that I was a safety that covered the slot receiver, and that was different than any other player in the 90s that was doing that.
That's right.
Now you're drafting guys who do just that. They play the nickel, and they're making $90 million to do so. So for me, it wasn't so much tackles or interceptions. It was the versatility to play multiple positions, play the safety position, come up and tackle, cover the slot receiver.
Yep.
Without having to come off the field. And I think what I did in the cover game is covering the slot or matching up with the tight end was probably bigger than any other thing that I ever did, because it allowed our defensive coordinator to be flexible in calling the defense.
Yeah, that's right.
And it allowed me to show you my versatility at the same time. And at one point in my career, I could say 7 years, there wasn't another safety doing what I was doing. They were playing the regular safety spot, and that was not covering people and just looking at the quarterback and making plays. It was a different game for me. Now, I wish I had the opportunity to look at the quarterback, and I blame this on Mike Zimmer, and just read the quarterback and go make plays, because then the interceptions would be that much higher.
You're too valuable just to be what other teams did with safeties. And that's
Preston,
the reason why
Michael
I think
Irvin,
you should be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Okay. Enough said on that issue. I think there are lots of folks out there who believe the same thing that I do. Here's one statistic that Cowboy fans really don't know a whole lot about. You are the only player that played under 5
Yeah. Head coaches, yeah.
Dallas Cowboy head coaches.
You know what? And I got to tell you something. I'm not so proud of that. I'm not, because you know what happens, right? Why do your coaches get fired? Because you suck, right? Your team sucks.
No,
You're 5-11, then you make a coaching change. Like that's one thing. I wish I had Jimmy the entire time. That means we're winning multiple championships at the same time.
Well, it's the players, or the coaches too.
How many Super Bowls do you think you win, Darren, with Jimmy Johnson?
Can you name them real quick? Jimmy
Johnson, Barry Switzer, Chan Gailey,
That's
Dave
the one
Campo.
most people forget.
They forget, yeah. Coach Gailey. And we were going, we were going through, there were some dead years. I mean, really some personnel, drafting. I mean, we just weren't good. We weren't good enough to even, to be a top 10 team in the league. Just through personnel. Personnel wasn't strong enough, right? So that was a struggle for me, because I came into a team that was really good early on. And I just saw when Jimmy left the building, we just fell off a cliff. And that was the hardest thing to deal with.
Wow. Yeah. Amazing career from a man who, again, deserves to be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Darren, it's been a pleasure. We only got 1 hour to do our show.
Man, I appreciate it.
We need to have about 6 or 7 more. we want to present a opportunity for you to come back.
Yeah.
I'm trying to put together a group of guys that I can put together, sit down over a table, and just talk.
Yeah.
about the Cowboys from different guys from different eras or different positions.
Yeah.
And let's just talk.
Yeah.
We'll put that together, and I want you to invite you to be a part of that.
Absolutely.
If and when we can.
Okay.
Nathan,
Yes,
you
sir.
still there?
I'm here, Preston.
How about him?
Oh, man.
Can we go ahead and give him a big hand real
Sure
quick?
can. I mean, one
awesome.
of the greatest player as a safety to ever put a helmet on his a star on his helmet, and one of the greatest safeties to play in the NFL. So, I mean, God, to have him on our show is just unbelievable.
Okay, we're going to end with this real quick. What are your projections for the Cowboys this year? Real quick.
Oh man, with the personnel that they have today, probably, I don't know, 10-7, maybe.
That much?
Yeah.
Yeah, you being a
give me the
Cowboy
opposite of,
fan
hey,
right
I'm
now.
being optimistic, right?
But we'll see.
11-6.
You gotta go.
Okay.
How are you? Look, how you predicted right now? It's what we're in. Not even June. We're in May.
Yeah,
trying to predict. There's going to be so much turnaround.
That's true.
Into that time.
True.
You asked me by October, by Halloween, I can tell you where they're going to be. Like you kind of know who everyone's going to be by that time in October. But right
Thanks.
now,
I think our
Thanksgiving Day,
offensive
yeah.
line is going to be pretty good, though. I really trust Will McClay. That's the one thing I can say is that he gets the offensive lineman. We haven't had a really a bad draft from him in that regard.
yeah.
So two of these new linemen coming, I think we're going to establish that run with Zeke a little more, and I think give Dak a little more play action pass. I think we're going to finish.
Yeah. Well, maybe that's the problem, though, right? Maybe that's the problem. Maybe the identity needs to change. They either run the football, play
Right.
good defense in the middle of the defense, D tackles,
the run,
linebacker. Absolutely, run the ball,
Yes.
stop the line,
That's
control the line of scrimmage. That's what we want.
All right.
Yes, sir, Darren.
You heard it right here on The Champions. I want to thank my very special guest, Darren Woodson,
Wow.
for being with us today.
Wow, Darren.
Thanks to our production studio, Real News Public Relations, to our producer, Trey Giles. We appreciate
Trey.
you, my man. Follow us, if you would, The Champions on social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, X, if you will. Also on audio only, TikTok, Amazon, Spotify, Google, and Apple Podcasts. Our next week's guest, you're going to love this guy. You're going to love him. He's as big as he is. Maybe a little bit bigger than he. Two-time first-team All-Pro, 6-time Pro Bowl, and 3-time Super Bowl champion. By the way, I forgot to mention that Darren Woodson is a 3-time Super Bowl champion. We're going to have another 3-time Super Bowl
Big
champion.
3 and 4 years.
Big Newt's coming in. Nate Newton's going to join us next week. You want to make sure you join us for that.
Yep. Yes.
So, with that, Nate, we've got to say, here we
Here we go.